Before you close your eyes, imagine for a moment that the world outside has pressed the pause button. There is a specific kind of silence that only exists when the earth is covered in a thick blanket of fresh snow. A quiet so deep it feels like a hug for your mind. Tonight, we aren't just going to sleep. We are going to travel back through time to discover why winter has always been humanity's season of deepest rest. From the ancient fires of our ancestors to the science of why the cold helps us dream, let yourself drift away into the comforting embrace of the long winter night. To truly understand the nature of rest, we must first understand the nature of sound, or more importantly, the absence of it. Imagine, if you will, the world as it was 300 years ago, or perhaps 3,000. We are going to step into a landscape before the hum of electricity, before the rumble of engines, and before the constant low-frequency buzz of modern life. But even in that ancient, quieter world, true silence was a rarity. The forests were always alive with the snap of dry twigs, the rustle of wind through dry leaves, the call of birds, or the distant rush of river water. However, there is one specific atmospheric event that has, since the dawn of time, pressed a gentle finger to the lips of the earth. This is the miracle of the snowfall. As you lie there, safe and warm, picture a heavy, gray sky over a vast New England woodland in the deep midwinter. The air has grown still, holding its breath in anticipation. Then it begins. The first few flakes drift down, wandering through the air like feathers. Then comes the steady, rhythmic descent of millions more. What you are witnessing in your mind's eye is not just a change in weather, it is a transformation of physics. Science tells us that the profound quiet of a winter night is not an illusion. It is an acoustic reality. When rain falls, it hits the earth with a rhythm, a patter, a splash, a drumming. Rain is percussion. But snow is different. Snow is silence made visible. Consider the snowflake itself. As it forms in the upper atmosphere, crystallizing into that sacred six-sided geometry, it becomes a marvel of architecture. A single snowflake is not a solid piece of ice like a hailstone. It is a lattice. It is a delicate, complex structure composed of ice crystals and open spaces. In fact, fresh, fluffy snow can be up to 90 to 95% trapped air. When these millions of intricate crystals stack upon one another on the ground, they create a deep, porous blanket. This is where the acoustical miracle happens. In the world of audio engineering, humans spend millions of dollars creating foam panels to absorb sound in recording studios. Nature, however, does it effortlessly with snow. When a sound wave travels through the air, perhaps the caw of a crow or the bark of a distant fox, it hits this fresh layer of snow. Instead of bouncing off the surface and echoing back into the air as it would on concrete or packed dirt, the sound wave enters the labyrinth of the snowpack. It weaves into the tiny pockets of air trapped between the crystals. The sound is absorbed, dampened, and gently extinguished. This is why, after a heavy blizzard, the world doesn't just look different, it sounds different. The sharp edges of high-frequency noises are sheared away. The low thrum of the earth is muffled. The volume of the entire world is turned down, not just by a notch, but until it is barely a whisper. For our ancestors, this acoustic shift was more than just peaceful. It was a signal for the nervous system to let go. Let us travel back in time for a moment. Imagine a small settlement on the American frontier in the early 19th century. Life in these times was laborious. The spring was for planting, the summer for tending, and the autumn for the frantic harvest. The world was loud with the sounds of work, the strike of the axe, the grinding of the mill, the shouts of men and women preparing for the lean months. But when the first great snow settled over the roof of a log cabin, a profound shift occurred. The roads became impassable. The fields disappeared under 2 feet of white powder. The work outside stopped. For the people inside, this snow silence was a biological cue. For thousands of years, the human brain has been wired to be alert to sound. A snapping branch meant a predator. A sudden splash meant danger. Our ancestors lived in a state of high auditory alert. But a world covered in deep snow is a world where movement is difficult. The predators are hibernating or moving stealthily and slowly. The threats recede. When that unique, muffled silence wrapped around the cabin, the settlers knew they were insulated, not just from the cold, but from the world itself. The snow acted as a barrier, a do not disturb sign hung upon the entire valley. There is a specific term scientists use for the absorption of sound by snow, the attenuation of acoustic energy. But to the family gathered around the hearth in 1850, it was simply known as the Great Quiet. Imagine sitting in a high-backed wooden chair by the fire in such a cabin. Outside, the wind might be trying to howl, but the snow piled against the logs acts as insulation, muffling the gale to a distant rhythmic hum. You can feel the vibration of the silence. It is a heavy, velvet sensation. This silence allows the mind to unspool. In the absence of external noise, the internal noise begins to quiet down as well. Without the sensory input of a chaotic world, the brain waves slow from the high-frequency beta waves of concentration to the slower, rolling alpha and theta waves of relaxation. This is the gift of the winter drift. It is a silence that feels protective. It is a hug that feels like a hug. Even the way snowfall contributes to this hypnotic sedation. If you watch snow falling, you will notice it rarely falls in a straight line. It rocks back and forth. This is due to the aerodynamics of the crystal structure. This gentle, swaying motion is visually rhythmic, mimicking the rocking of a cradle. So we have the visual rocking and the auditory dampening working in perfect unison. Let yourself drift deeper into this historical landscape. Imagine walking out of that cabin for just a moment to fetch a log for the fire. You step out onto the porch. The air is crisp, biting, and incredibly clean. You take a breath, and the cold air rushes into your lungs, waking up your senses, but the silence instantly calms you. You look out at the tree line. The evergreens, the pines, the hemlocks, the firs are draped in heavy white coats. The branches bow low under the weight. This, too, aids the silence. The shape of the forest has changed. The hard, reflecting surfaces of tree bark are covered. The ground is soft. If you were to walk into the snow, your footsteps would be soundless. Whump, whump, whump. The softest percussion imaginable. There is a sense of timelessness here. Standing in the dark under the falling snow, you could be in the year 2024 or 1824 or 10,000 BC. The snow erases the markers of time. It covers the roads, the fences, and the pathways. It resets the canvas of the earth to pristine white. This eraser of the known world is psychologically freeing. When the snow covers the path, there is nowhere to go. There is no guilt about not being productive. The storm has made the decision for you. Nature has declared a holiday of rest. In the modern world, we use white noise machines to help us sleep. Fans, static, recordings of rain. But snow is the original white noise, or rather, the original white silence. It doesn't add sound to mask others. It simply removes the clutter. It is a subtraction of chaos. As you lay in your bed tonight, imagine that a great benevolent storm is rolling in over your neighborhood. Imagine the flakes beginning to stick to the pavement, covering the cars, covering the streets. Imagine that slowly, house by house, the sounds of your city or town are being wrapped in cotton. The tire noise fades, the sirens stop, the footsteps vanish. The snow is building up, inch by inch, creating a fortress of quiet around your home. You are in the center of a snow globe, and the glass is thick, and the water inside is still. The acoustical miracle is taking place right now. The air pockets in the snowflakes are catching every worry, every stress, and every sharp noise, trapping them in the ice, leaving you with nothing but a pure, deep, resonating peace. The world has stopped talking so that you can finally listen to the rhythm of your own slow breathing. The blanket is on the earth and the blanket is over you. The silence is safe. The silence is heavy. And in this perfect acoustical quiet, there is nothing left to do but drift. Now that the snow has silenced the world outside, creating that perfect acoustic stillness, we turn our attention inward. We turn toward the earth beneath the snow and the ancient rhythmic magic happening just a few feet below the frost line. If you were to press your ear against the frozen ground in the deep forests of North America, you might think the earth is empty, but you would be wrong. Beneath the roots of the sleeping oak trees, inside the hollows of old logs, and deep within the mud of the frozen ponds, there is a massive, collective event taking place. It is the phenomenon of the great slowing down. For millions of years, nature has understood a secret that modern humans have forgotten. To survive the cold, one must not fight it. One must surrender to it. Let us drift in our minds to a den, hidden deep within a rocky hillside. Inside, curled into a tight, perfect sphere of fur, lies the American black bear. The bear is the king of winter rest, and his sleep is a masterpiece of biology. During the summer, the bear's heart beats with the vigorous rhythm of life, 50, 60, sometimes 70 beats per minute. But now, in the depth of January, that rhythm has changed. It has slowed. Down, down, down. It beats perhaps only 8 times a minute. Thump, thump, thump. This is not just sleep. This is torpor. It is a state of suspended animation where the body lowers its own thermostat. The biological fire is dimmed to a single glowing ember, just enough to keep the spirit attached to the body, but low enough to burn almost no energy. The bear does not eat, he does not drink, he simply exists in a state of pure, unadulterated rest. Imagine how liberating that must feel. To have your body tell you with absolute biological authority that there is nothing to do. There is no hunt to plan. There are no berries to forage. The instinctual drive to do has been shut off. The only task is to breathe slowly and deeply, and wait for the sun to return. But the bear is not alone. If we look deeper into the frozen leaf litter, we find the wood frog. This tiny creature performs an even greater miracle. When the temperature drops, the wood frog allows itself to freeze solid. Its heart stops completely. It becomes a small, icy sculpture of a living thing. To the naked eye, it appears gone. But inside, a natural antifreeze protects its cells. It is waiting. It is trusting the cycle so completely that it is willing to stop its own heart, knowing that the warmth of spring will restart it. This is the wisdom of the animal kingdom. They trust the pause. They do not view winter as a burden. They view it as the essential reset button for life. For our human ancestors, this connection to the great slowing down was not just an observation. It was a way of life. Travel back with me now, away from the animal dens, to the time of early humans, perhaps to the settlers in the Appalachian Mountains, or even farther back, to the indigenous tribes of the Great Plains, or the ancient peoples of Northern Europe. Before the invention of the light bulb, and certainly before the blue light of screens, the human circadian rhythm was tethered tightly to the sun. In the summer, when the sun hung in the sky for 16 hours, humans were active. They farmed, they hunted, they built. But when the winter solstice approached, the world changed. In December, the sun might set as early as 4:30 in the afternoon. Darkness would cloak the land for 15 hours or more. Without electricity, and with candles and oil being precious resources not to be wasted, there was only one thing to do. You followed the bear. History tells us that our ancestors slept significantly more in the winter than we do today. This wasn't because they were lazy. It was because they were in tune with the energy of the season. They entered a period of human hibernation. Imagine a small stone cottage in the 1700s. The windows are small to keep the heat in. The shutters are drawn against the wind. The family has eaten their final meal of the day by the light of the hearth. As the fire dies down to embers, the darkness of the room becomes total. The cold begins to creep in from the corners. The natural response is to seek warmth, and the best source of warmth was the bed. These beds were not the solitary flat surfaces we know today. They were often deep piles of straw, covered in wool blankets, furs, and heavy quilts sewn by hand. They were communal spaces of warmth. The family would climb into this nest, huddling together. And there, in the dark, the great slowing down would take hold of them too. Science shows that in the winter, the human body produces more melatonin, the hormone of sleep, and produces it earlier in the evening. Our ancestors didn't fight this. They didn't drink caffeine to stay awake. They allowed their eyelids to grow heavy. They allowed their limbs to feel weighted, as if the gravity of the earth had increased just for them. In these long winter nights, sleep was not always one continuous block. Historical records speak of the first sleep and the second sleep. People would sleep deeply for 4 or 5 hours, wake up in the peaceful quiet of the midnight hour to tend the fire, pray, or simply lie in the meditative dark, and then drift back into a second rich slumber until dawn. This rhythm was gentle, it was unforced. It was a time when the human metabolism naturally slowed down. You might have noticed this in yourself. In winter, we crave warm, heavy foods, stews, root vegetables, breads. This is an ancient biological echo. Your body is trying to build a reserve, just like the bear, to insulate the nervous system and prepare for the long rest. There is a profound relaxation in realizing that your tiredness in winter is not a flaw. It is a feature. It is your DNA remembering a time when winter meant safety, stillness, and conservation. Think of the farmers of old. When the fields were frozen, the plow was put away. The tools were hung in the barn. There was physically no work that could be done with the soil. This enforced idleness was a gift. It was the earth saying, "I am resting, and you must rest with me." There was no guilt in this. How could there be? You cannot plant seeds in snow. Therefore, you were free. You were free to sit by the fire. You were free to sleep 12 hours a night. You were free to move slowly.
As you lie in your bed tonight, I want you to visualize that you are part of this massive continental slowing down. Imagine the energy of the entire continent of North America dropping. The sap has stopped flowing in the billions of trees in the forests. It has settled into the roots, waiting. The insects have gone quiet. The birds have settled into their roosts, fluffing their feathers to trap the heat. The bears are deep in their dreamless trance.
You are part of this ecosystem. You are not a machine designed to run at full speed all year round. You are a biological being made of the same elements as the stars and the soil. Feel your own heart rate now. Visualize it matching the slow, steady rhythm of the hibernation season. It doesn't need to race. There is nowhere to go. The snow outside has blocked the path. The sun has gone down. Feel your muscles relaxing, mimicking the heaviness of the hibernating creatures. Let your legs feel as heavy as logs. Let your arms sink into the mattress. Let your eyelids feel as though they are sealed with a gentle, natural weight. You are entering your own personal wintering. This is a safe place. It is a warm burrow, lined with the comforts of the modern world, but connected to the instincts of the ancient one. The cold air outside your window is merely a reminder of how warm you are right now. The darkness is not empty. It is a blanket pulled up to your chin. In this state of slowing down, the brain begins to clear. Just as the winter cold kills off the bugs and clears the air of haze, deep winter sleep clears the mind of the debris of the day. It is a time of restoration. So, listen to the silence. Feel the slow rotation of the earth. Trust the biology of the season. The world has slowed down, and finally, so can you. The fire is dim. The cave is warm. The winter is here to hold you. We have listened to the silence of the snow. We have slowed our hearts to match the rhythm of the hibernating bear. And now, as the deep winter night settles fully over the land, we turn our attention to the one thing that has kept the darkness at bay for 1,000,000 years: the fire. There is a reason why, even in our modern age of central heating and smart thermostats, we are still drawn to the image of a fireplace. We put videos of crackling logs on our televisions during the holidays. We light candles on our bedside tables. We pay extra for homes that have a hearth in the living room. This attraction is not merely aesthetic, it is genetic. It is a memory burned into the very marrow of our bones. To understand this deep hypnotic comfort, we must travel back even further than the log cabin or the Viking longhouse. We must go back to the very beginning of the human story, to the Paleolithic era, the old Stone Age. Imagine a world without switches, a world where the sun was the only source of light, and when it dipped below the horizon, the world was swallowed by a blackness so complete it is hard for us to comprehend today. In this ancient world, winter was the ultimate test. It was cold, it was dark, and it was filled with the sounds of the unknown. But then, humanity made a friend. We do not know the name of the first human to tame fire, but we know the feeling that must have washed over them. Imagine a small band of our ancestors trekking across a frozen tundra or a windswept plain. The wind is howling, a low, mournful sound that cuts through fur and skin. The temperature is dropping rapidly. The landscape is a monochrome of blue ice and gray stone. They find a cave. It is a simple shelter, a hollow in the side of a mountain, shielded from the biting wind. It offers protection from the elements, but it is cold and it is dark. Then the miracle happens. A spark is struck, perhaps from flint against pyrite,
Or a smoldering ember is carried from a lightning strike in a hollow gourd. Dry leaves are gathered, a small twig catches, then a branch, and suddenly the cave is transformed. This is the birth of the first hearth. The creation of a fire in a winter cave was the first time humans created their own climate. Outside, it might be 10 degrees below zero, but inside the circle of the firelight, it is summer. The radiant heat pushes back the frost. It warms the stone walls, which in turn radiate that warmth back against the skin. But the fire provided something even more important than heat. It provided the first true relaxation. Before fire, humans had to be hyper-vigilant. In the dark, every snapping twig could be a predator. Sleep was light, fitful, and anxious. But fire changed the rules. Fire was a weapon that kept the beasts at bay. Wolves and tigers feared the flame. Therefore, when the fire was lit, the level of anxiety in the group dropped instantly. The fire acted as a sentinel. It was a guard dog composed of light and heat. With the fire burning at the mouth of the cave, the people inside could finally lower their guard. They could turn their backs to the dark. They could close their eyes and truly let go. This is why, to this day, standing into a fire feels so incredibly safe. Your brain recognizes the flicker of the flame as a signal of security. Let us imagine ourselves sitting by that ancient hearth right now. Picture the scene. The storm is raging outside. You can hear the wind whistling past the entrance of the cave, a high-pitched, lonely sound. But it cannot touch you. You are deep inside, sitting on a soft pelt of fur. In the center of the circle, the fire is alive. Watch it. The flames are not static, they are dancing. They shift from deep amber to bright orange to blue at the base where the heat is most intense. There is a rhythm to it, a chaotic but soothing pattern that never repeats itself. This visual randomness is a form of natural hypnosis. Science calls it fascination. It captures our involuntary attention, allowing our voluntary attention, the part of the brain that makes to-do lists and worries about the future, to switch off. Listen to the sound of the first hearth. The wood is dry, perhaps ancient pine or cedar. It cracks and pops as the heat expands the air pockets inside the wood. Snap, hiss, pop. It is a conversation. It is the sound of energy being released. There is a smell, too. The scent of wood smoke is one of the most evocative smells in the human experience. It smells of resin, of the forest, of earth. It is a grounding scent. In our modern lives, we are often surrounded by artificial scents, but wood smoke is raw and real. It tells us we are home. Around this first fire, the concept of home was actually invented. Before the hearth, humans were wanderers, but the hearth created a center. The word focus in Latin actually means hearth or fireplace. The fire was the focus of life. It was here, in the warm glow of the winter cave, that community was forged. Imagine the shadows flickering against the cave walls, huge dancing shapes that looked like spirits. This was the first cinema. Parents would tell stories to their children, their faces illuminated by the uplighting of the coals. The day's struggle for survival was over. The winter night was long, offering hours of time to simply be. There is a profound coziness in the contrast. The Japanese have a word for the sound of wind in the trees, matsukaze. But there is a universal feeling of hearing a storm while you are dry and warm. The louder the wind howls outside, the safer you feel inside. It emphasizes your shelter. It reminds you that you have conquered the elements for the night. As you lie in bed now, you can summon this ancient feeling. You don't need a cave. Your bedroom is your sanctuary. Your blankets are your furs. Visualize a small, contained fire burning in the center of your room, safely, magically. Feel the radiation of the heat. It touches your face first, a gentle flushing warmth. Then it seems to penetrate the muscles. Think of the color of the embers, that deep glowing red. It is a color that signifies the end of the day. It is the color of the setting sun, captured and held in a pile of ash. As the fire burns down, the flames settle. The bright leaping yellow gives way to a steady pulsating red glow. This is the dying of the fire, but it is not sad. It is the final stage of the lullaby. The intense heat softens. The light dims. It is the perfect lighting for sleep.
Our ancestors would watch the embers fade, their eyelids growing heavy. The cave would slowly darken, but the warmth would remain, trapped in the stones and the bodies of their family. They slept in a huddle, a tangle of limbs and furs, sharing body heat. You are a descendant of those people, the people who found the fire, the people who survived the ice ages. You carry their resilience in your blood, and you carry their love for warmth in your mind. Tonight, you are safe from the cold. The walls of your home are thick. The wind outside is merely a song. You can stare into the imaginary flames, watching them lick at the logs, watching the sparks rise up like tiny fireflies before vanishing into the chimney. Let the imaginary crackle of the wood be the only sound you hear. Crackle, pop, hush. Crackle, pop, hush. The fire burns the stress of the day. It consumes your worries and turns them into ash, leaving nothing but warmth behind. The primitive part of your brain, the part that scans for danger, sees the fire and nods. The fire is lit, it says. The wolves are gone. The cave is warm. We can sleep. Allow that ancient permission to wash over you. The fire is your guardian. It will keep watch while you travel into the land of dreams. The light is getting lower now. The orange is turning to a soft, dusky gray. The heat is a heavy, comforting blanket pressing you down into your mattress. You are at the first hearth. You are home. We have warmed ourselves by the first fire, and we have rested in the silence of the snow. Now we must turn our gaze upward and outward to the sky itself and to the most significant moment in the ancient winter calendar. Imagine, if you can, the deepest part of December. The air is crisp, biting, and smells of ice. The sun, which in summer traveled high and proud across the center of the sky, now skims the treetops. It is a pale, low-hanging lantern that rises late and sets early. The shadows stretch long and thin across the frozen ground, painting the world in shades of violet and gray. This is the time of the winter solstice. In Latin, the word solstitium translates to "the sun stands still." For a few days in deep winter, the sun seems to pause in its southward journey. It hovers on the horizon, undecided, before slowly, imperceptibly beginning its journey back toward the north. For us, with our electric lights and digital calendars, this is just a date on a page, usually December 21st. But for our ancestors, this was the most critical moment of existence. It was the turning of the tide. Let us travel back 5,000 years to the windswept Salisbury Plain in England. Here stands the great stone circle of Stonehenge. Picture the scene.
It is the shortest day of the year. The ground is hard with frost, crunching softly underfoot. A crowd of people has gathered. They are wrapped in thick wool and leather, their breath rising in white plumes against the twilight. They have traveled for miles, bringing their families, their livestock, and their hopes. They are waiting. They stand in the center of the massive ring of sarsen stones, stones that weigh as much as 25 tons, dragged by hand over miles of rolling hills. Why did they build this? They built it as a clock. They built it as a temple to the promise of light. As the sun begins to set on this shortest day, a hush falls over the crowd. The great orange orb dips lower and lower, and then it happens. The final rays of the setting sun align perfectly between the upright pillars of the great trilithon. A beam of golden light shoots through the stone archway, illuminating the altar stone. A collective sigh of relief washes over the people. The alignment is true. The cycle is intact. The sun has not abandoned the earth. Even though the night that follows will be the longest of the year, the moment of the sunset brings a profound comfort. From tomorrow, the days will get longer. The light is coming back. There is a deep relaxation in this realization. It reminds us that no matter how dark the world gets, the light is inevitable. It is not a matter of if, but when. The universe operates on a cycle of return. As you lie in the dark of your own room, let this ancient certainty settle into your bones. The darkness you are experiencing now is not permanent. It is merely the other half of the light. It is a necessary phase, a resting phase. Move forward in time now, from the stone circles of the Neolithic Age to the snow-covered forests of Northern Europe during the Iron Age. Here, the solstice was celebrated as Yule. The Yule tradition was built around the concept of bringing light and life indoors when the outside world appeared dead. The forests were bare, the leaves had fallen, the world was a skeleton of branches against a gray sky. But there were exceptions. The people noticed that certain trees refused to sleep. The pine, the fir, the holly, and the mistletoe. They remained green. They held on to their needles and their color even in the teeth of the blizzard. These were the evergreens. To the ancient mind, these trees were magical. They possessed a secret life force that could withstand the frost. And so, to comfort themselves during the long nights, families would cut boughs of evergreen and bring them into the house. Think of the smell, that sharp, clean scent of pine resin and earth. It is a smell that clears the mind. By decorating their homes with greenery, they were surrounding themselves with a symbol of resilience. They were saying to the winter, life continues. But the centerpiece of this comfort was the Yule log. Imagine a grand open hearth in a medieval hall. The family has gone into the woods and selected a massive log, usually oak, known for its slow, steady burn. This was not just firewood, it was an anchor. With great ceremony, the log was hauled into the house. It was dusted with flour and splashed with cider. When it was lit, it wasn't meant to burn quickly. It was meant to smolder, to glow, and to last. The Yule log was often kept burning for 12 full days. Picture yourself sitting on a sheepskin rug in front of that Yule log. The wind is rattling the wooden shutters. The night outside is 12, 14, perhaps 16 hours long. But you are not afraid of the dark, because you have the captured sun burning in your fireplace. The light of the Yule log was soft. It didn't glare. It cast long, dancing shadows on the walls. It turned the room into a warm, golden womb. This is the definition of comfort, a small, warm space in the middle of a vast, cold world. There is a psychological power in the solstice. It grants us permission to stop. If the sun is taking a break, standing still in the sky, why shouldn't we? In the modern world, we often feel guilty for being tired, for wanting to sleep more, for having less energy in January than in July. But the solstice tells us that this ebb and flow is natural. You are not a machine. You are a solar creature. When the light is low, your energy is meant to turn inward. Think of the spiral of light tradition. In some cultures, people would walk into a spiral of evergreen branches laid on the floor. They would carry an unlit candle to the center, light it from a central flame, and place it in the spiral as they walked back out. One by one, the candles would be placed until the dark room was filled with a growing, glowing spiral of light. It is a visual representation of hope. It shows that even a single small flame can break the darkness. Tonight, as you drift toward sleep, imagine that single candle. The flame is steady. It does not flicker. It is a small golden teardrop of light. Visualizing this light has a physiological effect. It warms the mind. It signals the brain to release oxytocin, the hormone of safety and bonding.
You are safe in the cycle of the year. The solstice has asked. Every day from now on, the sun will stay a minute longer. The light is growing. The dawn is coming a little bit earlier, but you do not need to rush to meet it. The long night is a gift. It is a blanket of time wrapped around you. It gives you extra hours to dream. It gives you permission to close your eyes and drift, knowing that the mechanics of the universe are working perfectly. The stones of Stonehenge are still standing, silent and heavy on the English plain, waiting for the sunrise. The evergreens in the forest are standing tall, holding their color under the snow. The Yule log is glowing in the hearth of history. And you are here, warm and heavy in your bed. The darkness is not empty. It is filled with the potential of the coming spring. It is a fertile darkness, a restorative darkness. So let the shadows lengthen. Let the night be long. The longer the night, the deeper the rest. You are part of the ancient promise. The light will return, as it always has and as it always will. But for now, the stars are watching. The earth is turning slowly, and it is time to sleep. We leave the stone circles of England now and let the wind carry us north. We travel across the gray, churning waters of the North Sea, past the fjords carved by ancient glaciers, to the land of the midnight sun, and, more importantly for us tonight, the land of the long winter night. We are entering the world of the Vikings, the Norsemen, and the ancestors of modern Scandinavia. History often paints these people as warriors, battling the waves and the world. But during the deep winter months, when the sea froze and the ships were pulled ashore, they became masters of something else entirely. They became the masters of shelter. In these northern lands, winter is not just a season. It is a formidable presence. The sun might rise for only 4 hours a day, casting a pale twilight blue over the snow-covered pines. The cold is absolute. But it was in this harsh crucible that the concept of coziness was invented. Long before the modern world fell in love with the Danish word hygge, pronounced hygge, the people of the north were living it out of necessity. Imagine standing on a snowy ridge in Norway 1,000 years ago.
Below you, nestled in a valley protected from the wind, sits a Viking longhouse. It is a striking piece of architecture. It does not look like a modern house. It looks like a great ship that has been overturned and placed gently upon the earth. The walls are made of thick timber and lined with turf, blocks of earth and grass that act as incredible insulation. The roof is curved, bowing down toward the ground, draped in a heavy blanket of snow. This shape is designed to let the wind flow over it, like water over a stone. From the outside, it looks silent, almost part of the landscape. But inside, it is a sanctuary of golden warmth. Let us open the heavy wooden door and step inside. The first thing that hits you is the smell. It is a rich, intoxicating blend of pine resin, wood smoke, dried herbs, and roasted meat. It is the smell of survival and abundance. The air inside is thick and warm, a stark contrast to the biting air you just left. The longhouse is one vast open room, sometimes 100 feet long. There are no windows to let the heat escape. The only light comes from the langgeld, the long fire. This is a trench of fire running down the center of the earthen floor, filled with glowing coals and slow-burning logs. This fire is the heart of the home. It does not just heat a corner. It heats the entire space. The smoke rises lazily, drifting up towards small vents in the roof, creating a hazy, dreamlike atmosphere. In this space, the harshness of the Viking life softened. This was the season of the winter hearth. The weapons were hung on the walls, unused. The farming tools were stored away. The focus shifted from doing to being. The furniture in the longhouse was designed for gathering. Along the walls ran wide wooden benches, known as palur. These were not just for sitting. They were raised platforms covered in layers of insulation. And here lies the secret to the Nordic art of sleep, the textiles. The Norse people understood the power of wool. They raised sheep with thick, oily fleeces that could repel water and trap heat. Inside the longhouse, there were piles of these sheepskins and heavy woven wool blankets called vadmal. Imagine the sensation of these ancient blankets. They were heavy. When you pulled one over your body, you felt it. It provided a deep, comforting pressure, what we now call deep pressure therapy in modern weighted blankets. But this was natural. It was the weight of the flock, the weight of the loom, pressing you down into a state of relaxation. The concept of hygge was born here on these benches. Hygge is often translated as coziness, but it means much more. It means a mood of contentment. It is the art of creating intimacy. It was about the feeling of being safe inside while the blizzard raged outside. It was about the simple pleasure of holding a warm cup in your hands. Picture a Viking elder sitting by the fire. He is holding a drinking horn or a rough clay cup. Inside is not water, but something warm. Perhaps it is a heated mead, sweetened with honey gathered in the summer, or a tea brewed from pine needles and birch bark, rich in vitamins. Feel the heat of the cup radiating into your palms. In a cold climate, warmth is a currency. Sharing a warm drink was a way of sharing life. As you sip the warm liquid, you feel the heat travel down your throat, warming your chest, spreading outward to your fingertips and toes. It is an internal thaw. The lighting in the longhouse was intentional. There were no harsh lights. Aside from the fire, they used simple lamps, bowls of fish oil or seal oil with a moss wick. These produced a soft, steady amber glow. This low-light environment is critical for sleep. It signals the brain that the day is done. In the longhouse, the shadows were soft, blurring the edges of the room, making the world feel smaller, closer, and safer. These sleep habits of the Norse were communal and comforting. In the grandest longhouses, the heads of the family might sleep in a lockrekja, a bed closet. This was a wooden compartment with doors that could be shut. Imagine a bed built into the wall, filled with down feathers and furs. When you climbed in and slid the wooden door shut, you were in a cocoon within a cocoon. A tiny, private world of absolute warmth. For the rest of the household, sleep was a shared experience on the raised benches. There was a sense of safety in numbers. You could hear the slow breathing of your family. You could hear the shifting of the dogs sleeping by the hearth. You were never alone in the dark. This sense of belonging is a key part of relaxation. Anxiety often comes from a feeling of isolation, of having to face the threats of the world alone. But in the longhouse, the tribe was together. The guard was down. Listen to the sounds of the Nordic winter night. Outside, the wind might be screaming across the fjords, battering the coast. But the longhouse is built of oak and earth. It does not rattle. It absorbs the storm. The wind outside only emphasizes the silence inside. Whoosh goes the wind. Crackle goes the fire. Hush goes the roam. The Vikings believed that winter was a time when the veil between worlds was thin, a time for dreams. They didn't rush sleep. They treated it as a journey. As you lie in your bed tonight, imagine you are a guest in this great hall. You have been given the warmest spot by the fire. A heavy sheepskin has been laid beneath you, soft and deep. A thick woolen blanket, woven with patterns of protection, is pulled up to your chin.
You can smell the faint, sweet scent of the burning birch logs. You can feel the heaviness of the furs. The amber light of the embers is fading, pulsing slowly like a heartbeat. There is nothing to do here. The ships are docked. The harvest is in. The snow is piled high against the door, sealing you in. You are safe in the trellis of timber. Allow yourself to embrace the Nordic mindset of winter. Do not resent the cold. Use it as an excuse to be warmer than you have ever been. Use the darkness as an excuse to close your eyes earlier. The storm outside is not your problem. It is merely the music of the earth, playing you a lullaby of wind and ice, telling you that you are smart enough and safe enough to be inside. The fire is banking down. The hall is quiet. The wool is warm. The night is long. Drift into the comfort of the north. The fire in the Viking longhouse fades behind us now, and we travel west, far across the Atlantic, to the vast, untouched woodlands and sweeping plains of North America. We step into a time before maps were drawn on paper, when the geography of the world was kept in the memory of the people. Here, in the deep embrace of winter, a different kind of magic takes place. It is not a magic of construction or fortification, but a magic of the voice. For the indigenous peoples of this continent, the Ojibwe, the Cree, the Blackfoot, and the Iroquois, winter was not merely a season of cold. It was known as the time of telling. There is a profound historical reason for this. In the spring, summer, and autumn, life was a race against time. The days were filled with the urgent rhythm of survival. Tracking the herds, planting the maize, gathering the wild rice, drying the fish, and tanning the hides. There was no time to sit idle. The sun was a taskmaster. But when the first deep snows fell, the world stopped. Nature herself hung up her tools. And so the people did the same. The harvest was stored in birch bark baskets. The meat was smoked and hung. The freezing temperatures made travel difficult and unnecessary. For the first time in the year, there was nowhere to go and nothing urgent to do. This pause created a sacred space for the mind. In many indigenous traditions, there was a strict rule. The sacred legends and the great myths could only be told when the snow lay on the ground. This was not just a custom, it was a spiritual law. The elders taught that during the warm months, the spirits of the earth were awake. The frogs, the snakes, the bears, and the trickster spirits were roaming the land. To talk about them then would be disrespectful, or perhaps invite their mischievous attention. But in winter, the earth was asleep. The snakes were deep underground. The bear was in his den. The spirits were hibernating under the blanket of snow. It was safe to speak their names. It was safe to tell their stories. Imagine you are pushing aside the heavy buffalo hide flap of a lodge or a wigwam. You step inside, leaving the biting wind behind. The air here is warm and smells of sweet grass, burning cedar, and cured leather. The space is small and round, a circle. In the center, the fire creates a soft, flickering column of light that rises to the smoke hole in the roof, where you can see a single star passing by. The entire family is here, the elders, the parents, and the children. They are sitting on furs, shoulder to shoulder. The atmosphere is one of intense, reverent anticipation. In the center sits the storyteller. In these cultures, the storyteller was not just an entertainer. They were the library. They were the history books, the courts of law, and the teachers of morality, all wrapped in one person. They held the entire memory of the tribe in their mind. Notice the voice of the storyteller. It is not loud. It does not compete with the wind outside. It is a low, melodic rumble. It is a voice practiced in the art of the trance. Science tells us that when we listen to a story, our brain waves synchronize with the storyteller. It is a phenomenon called neurocoupling. When the storyteller speaks of a calm forest, your brain lights up as if you are seeing that forest. You are not just hearing the words, you are living them. In the winter lodge, this effect was amplified by the firelight and the utter silence of the snowy world outside. The stories were long. They were not designed to be quick sound bites. A single story might take 3 nights to tell. The storyteller would weave a tapestry of words, introducing the trickster, perhaps Coyote or Nanabojo, and following him through adventures that explained why the stars are where they are, or why the beaver has a flat tail. There is something incredibly relaxing about this structure. As a listener, you don't need to know the ending yet. You are being asked to surrender to the journey. The story creates a container for your mind, preventing it from wandering to your own worries. You are carried along by the narrative stream. This tradition was not unique to North America. If we look across the globe, we see that winter is humanity's universal classroom. In the peat-warmed cottages of Ireland, the Sanshai, the bearer of old lore, would sit by the fire and recite the genealogies of kings and the battles of giants. In the wooden izbas of Russia, grandmothers would whisper tales of the firebird while the snow buried the windows. The winter forced humans to sit still, and in that stillness we learned to listen. There is a specific comfort in being read to or told to. It is a return to childhood. It is a return to a state of dependency where someone else is in charge of the reality. The storyteller holds the thread. You simply have to hold on to the feeling. Imagine the sensory details of the lodge again. The fire pops. Someone shifts their weight on the dried rushes covering the floor.
A child rests their head on a mother's knee. The storyteller pauses for emphasis, and for a moment the only sound is the wind breathing against the canvas of the tent. This is the original podcast. This is the original audiobook. But it was better because it was shared. The warmth of the bodies around you, the shared gasps, the shared laughter. It created a chemical bath of oxytocin and dopamine in the brain. It made the cold winter feel like a time of connection rather than isolation. The stories often had a rhythm, a repetition. And he walked, and he walked, and he walked. This repetition is hypnotic. It acts like a metronome for the heartbeat. It lulls the conscious mind to sleep, allowing the subconscious to wake up and receive the wisdom of the tale. As the night deepened, the voice of the storyteller would soften. The stories would shift from high adventure to quieter, more philosophical musings. The children would fall asleep one by one, carried off to dreams on the back of the narrative. There was no bedtime enforcement. Sleep happened naturally when the eyelids became too heavy to hold up the images of the story. Tonight, you are part of this circle. You are safe inside the lodge of history. The snow is piled high against the walls, insulating you from the modern world. The spirits are asleep under the frost. You can let go of your story for a while. You don't need to write the next chapter of your life tonight. You can just listen. Listen to the ancient cadence of the winter tale. It tells you that the seasons are a circle. It tells you that winter is not the end, but a resting place. It tells you that you belong to a long line of people who survived the cold by holding on to each other and holding on to their dreams. The storyteller's voice is fading now, becoming a gentle murmur, blending with the sound of the dying fire. The lesson is over. The work is done. The silence of the snow has returned, but now it is filled with the friendly ghosts of the story.
The lodge is warm. The night is still. And the story has no end. It merely pauses, waiting for you to pick it up in your dreams. We leave the smoky warmth of the Indigenous lodge and the ancient wisdom of the storyteller, and we step forward in time. We travel to a world of cobblestones and gaslights, to the bustling, snow-dusted streets of the 19th century. We find ourselves in the Victorian era, a time that, in many ways, invented the romantic vision of winter that we still dream of today. Before this era, winter was often seen merely as a hardship. But in the 1800s, whether in the winding streets of Charles Dickens's London or the quaint white-steepled villages of New England, winter was transformed into a painting come to life. It became a season of aesthetic beauty, of muffled sounds, and of deliberate, heavy comfort. Imagine you are standing on a street corner in a great city, perhaps Boston or London, in the year 1885. It is twilight. The sky is a deep, bruised purple, heavy with the promise of more snow. But the city is not dark. It is glowing. The street lamps have just been lit. These are not the harsh, buzzing electric lights of our modern world. They are gas lamps. Listen closely and you might hear them, a gentle, steady hiss of burning gas. They cast a warm, living light, a soft yellow sphere that barely penetrates the fog but makes the falling snowflakes sparkle like crushed diamonds. The air is cold, certainly, but it is a romantic cold. It is the kind of cold that justifies the fashion of the time. Imagine the heavy, grounding weight of the clothing. Long wool coats that reach the ankles, thick velvet capes, fur-lined muffs for keeping hands warm, and tall, stiff hats. People are wrapped in layers, insulated against the world, moving like dark, soft silhouettes against the white snow. But the most relaxing aspect of this Victorian winter is the soundscape. In the summer, these streets would be deafening with the clatter of wooden carriage wheels on stone and the sharp clip-clop of horses' iron shoes. But tonight, the city has been paved in silence. A foot of fresh snow has fallen, packing down between the cobblestones. The harsh rattle of the wheels is gone. In its place is a soft, rhythmic swish. The sharp strike of the hooves is gone, replaced by a muffled, rhythmic thud. Thud, thud, thud. And then there is the music of the season. Because the sleighs and carriages move so silently over the snow, they needed a way to warn pedestrians of their approach. And so they added bells. Listen to them in your mind. Silver sleigh bells. They are not loud or jarring. They are a shimmering, cascading sound. Jingle, jingle, jingle. They approach from the distance, swell as the horse trots past, and then fade away into the snowy night. This sound is a lullaby. It is a predictable, rhythmic loop that the brain finds immensely soothing. Let us step off the street into one of these carriages, a one-horse open sleigh. You climb up onto the high leather seat. The driver tucks a heavy buffalo robe or a thick wool blanket around your legs, weighing you down, pinning you into the warmth. The driver snaps the reins and the horse moves forward. There is a sensation here that is unique to winter, the sensation of gliding. You are not rolling over bumps, you are floating over the ice. The runners of the sleigh slice through the snow with a whisper. The cold wind rushes past your face, making your skin tingle, but your body is encased in a cocoon of warmth. As you glide through the city or the countryside, you look into the windows of the passing houses. In the Victorian era, the concept of domesticity was a religion. The home was the castle, and in winter, the home was a fortress of coziness. You see windows glowing with amber light. There were no overhead lights then to cast harsh shadows. Rooms were lit by the low, flickering illumination of the hearth and the table lamp. This lighting naturally signaled the body to rest. Let us arrive at one of these homes. It is a large brick house with a wreath of holly on the heavy oak door. You step inside, shaking the snow from your coat. The Victorian interior was designed for winter. Modern minimalism would have horrified a Victorian. They loved stuff. But for relaxation, this clutter serves a purpose. The rooms were filled with heavy velvet drapes, called portieres, hanging over the doorways to stop drafts. The floors were covered in thick Persian rugs, layered one over the other. The furniture was overstuffed, tufted, and fringed. All of this fabric absorbed sound. To walk into a Victorian parlor in winter was to walk into a soundproof chamber. The world outside simply ceased to exist. Imagine sitting in a high-backed wing chair by the fire. The wings on the chair were not just for style. They were designed to trap the heat from the fire around your head and block the drafts from the room. You are physically embraced by the furniture. On the small table beside you sits a candle in a brass holder. Watch the flame. It is the only movement in the room. In the 19th century, time moved slower. Without the internet, without the telephone, the evening was a vast, open space of time. People sat. They embroidered. They read long, dense novels by gaslight. They wrote letters by hand, the scratch of the nib on paper the only sound in the room. This slowness is something we crave today. It was a time when it was acceptable to do one thing at a time. The romance of the Victorian winter is also found in its scents. This was the era of the pomander, an orange studded with cloves drying by the fire,
releasing a spicy citrus aroma. It was the smell of roasting chestnuts bought from a street vendor, and the scent of coal smoke, which, while industrial, carries a deep, earthy nostalgia for a time of simple heat. Now the evening is drawing to a close. It is time to ascend the stairs to the bedchamber. The Victorian bedroom was cold. Central heating was rare. But this cold room was the secret to the deepest sleep. Science tells us that we sleep best when our head is cool and our body is warm. You prepare for bed. You put on heavy flannel nightclothes, soft and worn. But before you climb in, there is a ritual, the bed warmer. Imagine a brass pan filled with hot coals from the fire, attached to a long wooden handle. It is slid between the sheets, moved back and forth, ironing out the cold, leaving behind a toasted, warm pocket for your feet. You climb into the bed. It is high off the ground. The mattress is not foam. It is stuffed with feathers or horsehair, shaping itself to your body. You pull up the covers, not just a sheet, but layers of heavy quilts, perhaps a down comforter. The weight is immense. It anchors you to the mattress. You sink down, down into the feathers. The room is dark, save for the last embers in the grate. You can see your breath in the air, a faint wisp of white, but you are toasty warm under the layers. Outside the window, the snow is still falling. It piles up on the sash, sealing the cracks. In the distance, you hear it one last time, the faint, rhythmic jingle of a sleigh bell. A late traveler heading home. Jingle, jingle, jingle. The sound gets quieter, and quieter, and quieter, until it is gone. The Victorian world has shut down for the night. The shopkeepers have shuttered their windows. The horses are in their stables, eating warm hay. The gas lights are turned down low. You are left with the silence of a century past, a time when the night was truly dark, when the winter was a reason to rest, and when the world moved at the speed of a trotting horse. Drift away into this sepia-toned dream. The romance of the snow has wrapped the world in white lace. You are safe in the heavy comfort of history. We leave the gaslight streets of the city now. We leave behind the sleigh bells and the parlor games, and we travel further west into the heart of the great American silence. We are going to a place where there are no roads, only trails, where there are no neighbors, only trees.
We are traveling to the frontier. Imagine yourself standing in a vast, pristine wilderness in the mid-19th century. Perhaps it is the deep woods of Maine, or the foothills of the Rockies, or the dense pine forests of the Oregon Territory. The landscape is a sweeping canvas of white. The snow here is not packed down by carriages. It is waist-deep, powdery, and untouched, save for the tracks of a snowshoe hare or the trail of a deer. In the middle of this white ocean stands a single structure, a log cabin. It is small, sturdy, and undeniably solid. It was built by hand, log by log, cut from the very forest that surrounds it. It sits low to the ground, anchored to the earth. A curl of gray smoke rises steadily from the stone chimney, writing a lazy signature against the crystal blue sky. This is the sanctuary of the frontier. It is a place inspired by the spirit of Henry David Thoreau, who famously walked into the woods to live deliberately, to front only the essential facts of life. Tonight, we embrace that simplicity. We embrace the luxury of having less. In our modern lives, we are surrounded by endless options, endless noises, and endless notifications. But here in the cabin, the menu of life is short and sweet. There is wood to chop. There is a fire to tend. There is a book to read. And there is sleep. That is all. Walk up to the cabin now. The snow crunches satisfyingly under your boots, a crisp, dry sound. You reach the door. It is made of heavy oak planks, weathered to a silver gray by the seasons. There is no lock, only a simple wooden latch. You lift it, push the door open, and step inside. The silence of the forest is replaced instantly by the warm, amber hush of the interior. The cabin is one room, but it is everything you need. The walls are rough-hewn logs, the bark stripped away to reveal the smooth, golden wood underneath. Between the logs, the chinking, a mixture of clay and moss, seals the cracks tight, keeping the biting wind at bay. You can feel the craftsmanship. You can feel the protection. The air inside smells incredible. It is a masculine, earthy scent, pine resin, dried sage hanging from the rafters, the iron tang of the wood stove, and the faint, sweet aroma of old paper. In the center of the room stands the heart of the cabin, a cast iron wood stove. It is radiating a powerful, steady heat. It clicks and ticks softly as the metal expands, a rhythmic sound that marks the passing of time. On top of the stove, a copper kettle is simmering, sending a thin stream of steam into the air, adding a layer of humidity that softens the dry winter air. This is the essence of frontier cozy. It is not delicate, it is rugged. It is the feeling of being a small, warm dot in a vast, cold universe. There is a profound relaxation that comes from self-sufficiency. In this cabin, you know exactly where your heat comes from. You walked out into the morning air, axe in hand. You split the logs, cedar, birch, oak. You stacked them against the wall. Visualize that stack of firewood now, piled neatly next to the stove. The bark is rough, the ends of the logs showing the rings of time. There is a deep psychological comfort in looking at a stack of wood. It is a visual representation of security. It says, I have enough. I am prepared. Let the storm come. I have stored the warmth of the sun in these logs, and I will release it tonight. You take off your heavy wool coat and hang it on a peg by the door. You sit down in a rocking chair made of hickory. It creaks softly as you settle in. Creak, hush. Creak, hush. The window of the cabin is small, a square of wavy glass. Through it, you can see the sun beginning to set behind the ridge. The shadows of the pine trees stretch out, long and blue across the snow. The world is turning indigo. This is the moment of true solitude. Solitude is different from loneliness. Loneliness is a craving for others. Solitude is a craving for yourself. In the frontier cabin, you are not lonely. You are in the company of the trees. You are in the company of the fire. You are monarch of all you survey. There is no rush here. There is no clock on the wall ticking away the seconds. The time is measured by the burning of the log. When the fire burns low, you add another piece. That is the only schedule you must keep. Imagine the simple supper you might prepare. A loaf of cornbread warming in a skillet. A tin cup of coffee, dark and rich. You eat slowly, staring into the flames visible through the grate of the stove. The simplicity of the task quiets the mind. You are not multitasking. You are simply being. As the night fully descends, the cabin seems to shrink, becoming even cozier. The corners of the room fade into darkness. The only light comes from the oil lamp on the table, a soft, golden pool of illumination
that highlights the grain of the wood table and the pages of an open book. You are reading, perhaps a passage from Walden. I went to the woods because I wished to live deliberately. The words float in the air, ancient and true. Outside, the wind picks up. It rushes through the tops of the evergreen trees, a sound like the ocean, a distant roaring wave that never breaks. Whew! But inside, the flame of the oil lamp doesn't even flicker. That is how well built this shelter is. The contrast between the wild, chaotic wind outside and the still, golden air inside is the ultimate sedative. It reinforces your safety. You are in a wooden fortress. You find yourself staring at the shadows dancing on the log walls. The cabin feels like a living thing, breathing with you. It has stood here through blizzards and thaws, a silent witness to the seasons. It holds you in its wooden arms. Now the fire has burned down to a bed of glowing red coals. The heat is soaking into the floorboards, into the furniture, into you. Your eyes feel heavy. The exertion of the imaginary day, the chopping of wood, the walking in snow, has left your body with a good tired. A physical heaviness that pulls you towards sleep. You move to the bed. In a frontier cabin, the bed is often tucked into a corner, or perhaps up in a low loft under the eaves. It is a nest. The mattress is filled with straw or corn husks, covered with heavy ticking. It rustles softly as you lie down. Over you, you pull the heaviest covers yet. Perhaps a buffalo robe, thick with fur, or a quilt patched together from wool coats. The weight is substantial. It presses you down into the mattress, grounding you. You blow out the lamp. The darkness is instant, but not total. The red glow from the stove grate casts a faint, sleepy light on the floor. Now you listen. You listen to the silence of a continent. There are no engines, no sirens, no voices, just the wind. Just the settling of the logs as they cool, a gentle pop or creak. Just the sound of your own breath. In this cabin, you are anonymous. The world does not know where you are, and it doesn't need you for the next 8 hours. You have escaped. You have retreated to the edge of the map. You are self-sufficient. You are warm. You are safe. The trees outside stand guard, thousands of them, standing shoulder to shoulder in the snow. They are the walls of your larger room. The sky is your roof, studded with stars that look sharper and brighter than you have ever seen them. But you don't need to look at them. You can burrow deeper under the buffalo robe. The smell of the wood smoke is a lullaby. The heat of the stove is a promise. Drift away into the simple, rugged peace of the frontier. You have done the work. You have chopped the wood. The fire is built. Rest now in the heart of the wild. We have warmed ourselves by the fire, and we have wrapped ourselves in the heavy wool of history. But now, as the night reaches its deepest, quietest hour, the hour between the late watch and the early dawn, we are going to step out of our shelter for one final brief moment. We are not going out to travel. We are going out to look up.
There is a scientific fact about winter that is often overlooked, yet it is one of the most beautiful gifts of the season. Winter nights are not just longer than summer nights. They are clearer. They are sharper. They are, in a very literal sense, more transparent. Think of the porch of that frontier cabin, or perhaps in your own backyard, wrapped in your warmest coat, a scarf pulled up to your nose. You tilt your head back, and you gasp. The sky above you is not the hazy, humid sky of July. In the summer, the atmosphere is thick with moisture, with dust, with the pollen of a billion flowers. That heavy air scatters the light, making the stars appear faint and distant, as if viewed through a dirty window. But tonight, in the dead of winter, the cold has performed a miracle of cleansing. Cold air is dry air. The moisture has frozen and fallen to earth as frost or snow. The dust has been pinned to the ground. The atmosphere above you is thin, stable, and incredibly still. The window of the sky has been polished to a perfect crystalline clarity. This is the crystal sky. Look at it. The darkness of the space between the stars is not just black. It is the color of deep obsidian. It is a velvety, infinite depth. And against this backdrop, the stars do not just twinkle, they blaze. They pierce the darkness with a hard, diamond-like intensity. This is the season of the giants. In the northern hemisphere, the winter sky contains the brightest stars in the heavens. Direct your gaze to the south. There he stands, Orion, the hunter. He is the king of the winter night, perhaps the most recognizable constellation in human history. 3 bright stars in a perfect row make up his belt: Alnitak, Alnilam, and Mintaka. For thousands of years, humans have looked at those 3 stars and felt a sense of continuity. The ancient Egyptians saw them. The Greek poets wrote of them. The Polynesian navigators used them to guide their canoes across the vast Pacific. When you look at Orion, you are looking at the same steady picture that calmed the nights of your ancestors. Hanging from Orion's belt is his sword, and if you look closely, even with the naked eye, you might see that the middle star of the sword is fuzzy. That is the Orion Nebula. It is a nursery where new stars are being born. Even in the freezing cold of winter, the universe is creating new light. Now, follow the line of Orion's belt down and to the left. You will find Sirius, the dog star. It is the brightest star in the entire night sky. In the crisp winter air, Sirius often seems to flash with different colors: blue, white, even hints of red, as its brilliant light refracts through the atmosphere. It is a beacon. It is a diamond solitaire set in the ring of the night. There is a profound relaxation that comes from stargazing. It is the relaxation of perspective. When we look down at our phones or our desks, our world is small. Our problems seem enormous because they fill our entire field of vision. But when we look up at the winter Milky Way, that faint, milky river of light stretching across the zenith, our world readjusts. We realize we are standing on a small blue marble, spinning slowly in a vast, quiet ballet of gravity. The deadlines, the worries, the to-do lists, all shrink when set against the scale of the cosmos. The stars do not hurry. The constellations do not stress. They simply are. This is the overview effect from the ground. It is a psychological release. You are handing your worries over to the void, and the void is big enough. Think of the navigators of the past. Imagine a ship captain in the 1700s standing on the wooden deck of a schooner in the middle of the Atlantic. The sea is dark and restless. The wind is cold. There is no land for 1,000 miles. But the captain is not afraid. He raises his sextant. He finds Polaris, the North Star. He finds the steady geometric shapes of the winter constellations. He knows exactly where he is. The ocean may be treacherous, but the sky is reliable. The stars are his anchors. They are the fixed points in a changing world. You too can use the stars as an anchor tonight. As you lie in your bed,
Visualize the roof of your room becoming transparent. Allow the ceiling to dissolve into clear glass. You are warm under your blankets, but your eyes can see the infinite. Look for the Pleiades, the seven sisters. In the winter sky, they look like a tiny shimmering cluster of grapes, a little smudge of diamond dust. They are delicate and ghostly. In Japan, they are called Subaru, meaning to gather together. They are huddled close for warmth, just like us. There is a rhythm to the sky, just as there is a rhythm to the seasons. The stars rise in the east and set in the west, a slow, majestic clock that takes 24 hours to make a full circle. If you were to watch the winter sky for an hour, you would barely see it move. It is the definition of patience. But it is moving. The earth is turning you away from the sun, turning you toward the deep outer reaches of the galaxy. This movement is a cradle. The gravity that holds the moon in its orbit is the same gravity that holds you to your mattress. You are stuck to the earth, safe and secure, while the planet carries you through the stars. The cold air outside enhances the silence. Sound travels differently in the cold, but up there, in the vacuum of space, there is no sound at all. It is the ultimate library, quiet, peaceful, still. Allow the light of these distant suns to wash over you. Scientific studies suggest that looking at fractal patterns, the random but organized scattering of stars, activates the alpha waves in the brain. It puts us in a state of soft fascination. We don't have to focus hard. We just have to witness. The dog star Sirius is watching over the horizon. The Great Bear, Ursa Major, is prowling the northern sky. The hunter, Orion, is standing guard in the south. You are surrounded by celestial guardians. They have watched over the sleep of dinosaurs, of cavemen, of kings, and of astronauts. Now they are watching over you. The air is crisp, the sky is crystal clear, the haze is gone. In this clarity, there is no room for confusion. Everything is sharp and simple. There is the dark, and there is the light. As you prepare to turn your attention back to the warmth of your bed, take one last mental image of the star-filled sky. Capture that feeling of vastness. Pull the covers up tighter. The contrast is beautiful. Outside, the universe is negative 400 degrees, a vacuum of cold. Inside, you are 98 degrees, a radiant being of life. You are a star wrapped in skin, burning with your own warmth. Let the roof solidify again. Let the walls return. But know that just beyond them, the crystal sky is still there. The stars are still shining, even if clouds roll in, even if the sun comes up. They are the permanent backdrop of your life. You are a traveler on the earth, sailing through the winter night. The course is set, the water is calm, the stars are bright. You can stop navigating now. You can let go of the wheel. The universe knows the way. We have traveled through history, from the stone caves of the ancients to the log cabins of the frontier. We have gazed up at the crystal architecture of the winter stars. But now we must make the most important journey of all. We must travel inward to the miracle of your own biology. As you lie here tucked away from the world, you might feel that your desire to curl up under a heavy blanket is simply a preference, a habit, or a comfort. But it is far more than that. It is a biological imperative. The science of sleep tells us that winter is not just a season that occurs outside the window. It is the season that your body was designed to crave.
To understand true rest, we must look at the thermostat of the human body. During the day, as you move, think, and work, your core body temperature runs high. You are a furnace of energy. But as the sun sets and the evening approaches, a shift occurs. Your circadian rhythm, that internal master clock, sends a signal to the brain. It says, the day is done. It is time to cool the engine. For you to fall asleep, and more importantly, for you to stay asleep, your core body temperature must drop. It needs to fall by about 2 to 3 degrees Fahrenheit. This drop is the trigger that releases melatonin. It is the physical key that unlocks the door to the dream world. This is why winter is the champion of sleep. In the summer, when the air is thick and hot, the body struggles to shed its heat. It fights to cool down, leading to tossing and turning. But in winter, the environment cooperates perfectly with your biology. The cold air of the bedroom acts as a natural sedative. It draws the heat away from your head and hands, allowing the core temperature to sink rapidly into the sleep zone. There is a fascinating history to this. Before the advent of central heating, bedrooms were often the coldest rooms in the house. In the early 20th century, doctors and architects in America designed sleeping porches, screened-in rooms where people would sleep almost outdoors, even in the snow, bundled up like mummies. They knew intuitively what science has since proven. The cold air is a tonic for the nervous system. But the magic of the cold is only half the story. The other half is the physiology of cozy. Cozy is not just an emotion. It is a sensory experience defined by contrast. The human brain delights in thermal contrast. There is no sensation quite as exquisite as the feeling of a cold nose and warm toes. Let's focus on the blankets you are under right now. In the world of sleep science, there is a concept known as deep pressure stimulation. When you pile on the heavy quilts, the down comforters, the wool blankets, the weighted throws, you are applying a gentle, evenly distributed pressure across your entire body. To your nervous system, this weight feels exactly like a hug. When you are hugged, your body releases oxytocin and dopamine, the neurotransmitters of safety and peace. At the same time, it reduces cortisol, the stress hormone. So, when you pull that heavy winter duvet up to your chin, you are literally suppressing your own stress response. You are swaddling yourself. Imagine the layers covering you now. Perhaps there is a crisp, cool sheet against your skin. Above that, a fluffy, insulating layer that traps your body heat, creating a microclimate that is uniquely yours. This microclimate is a marvel of physics. You are heating the air trapped in the fibers of the blanket, creating a cocoon of tropical warmth in the middle of a winter night. You are the heat source. You are the fire in your own personal hearth. This feeling of containment is primal. It goes back to the womb. It goes back to the cave. It signals to the primitive part of your brain, the amygdala, that you are hidden, you are covered, you are safe from the elements. Let's bring your attention to your breathing. In a cool room, the air you inhale is denser. It is richer in oxygen. Feel the sensation of the cool air entering your nostrils as you breathe in, and the warm air leaving as you breathe out. Inhale the cool, exhale the warm. There is a specific nerve in your face called the trigeminal nerve. It is sensitive to temperature. When cool air touches your forehead and your cheeks, this nerve sends a calming signal to the brainstem. It is the same refreshing feeling as splashing cold water on your face, but gentler. It tells the heart to slow down.
This is why we love to bury our bodies under the covers but leave our heads exposed. We are creating the perfect biological balance. The body is warm and loose, the head is cool and clear. Think about the position of your body. In the cold, we naturally curl up. We adopt the fetal position. This is the posture of conservation. It is the posture of protection. By curling up, you are physically closing yourself off from the world, turning your focus inward. And then there are the feet. Science tells us that warm feet are the secret to falling asleep quickly. When your feet are cold, the blood vessels constrict, trapping heat in the core. But when you wear warm wool socks, or when you slide your feet into that toasty pocket at the bottom of the bed, the blood vessels dilate. This signals the body that it is safe to release heat, accelerating that essential drop in core temperature we spoke of earlier. So, wiggle your toes for a moment. Feel the warmth surrounding them. Visualize the tension draining out of your feet, leaving your legs heavy and relaxed. The heavy winter bedding also serves another purpose. It creates a sound barrier. Just as the snow muffles the street, the duvet muffles the room. The rustle of the fabric against your ear is a white noise, a soft friction that blocks out the ticking of clocks or the creaking of the house. You are in a sensory deprivation tank of your own making. This environment, cool air, heavy weight, total warmth, is the recipe for deep sleep and REM sleep. REM, rapid eye movement sleep, is where we dream, where we process emotions, and where we consolidate memories. Studies suggest that we sleep longer in the winter. Our bodies want to stay in this state. We are not fighting the light. We are embracing the dark. Allow yourself to appreciate the sheer pleasure of this moment. There is a Japanese word, tsundoku, for buying books and letting them pile up. But there should be a word for the specific happiness of waking up in the middle of a winter night, realizing the room is freezing, realizing you are warm, and realizing you have hours left to sleep. It is a moment of pure gratitude. You have created a fortress of comfort. The architecture of your bed is perfect. Feel your muscles surrendering to the warmth. The cold air in the room is not an intruder. It is a helper. It is pressing down on the blankets, sealing you in. It is creating a boundary. Out there is the cold. In here is the warmth. The boundary is secure. Your eyelids are heavy now, weighted down by the same gravity that holds the snow to the ground. Your breathing has slowed to match the rhythm of the hibernating world. Your body is doing exactly what it was evolved to do over millions of years. It is responding to the winter. It is shutting down the non-essential systems. It is banking the fires. You are not just falling asleep. You are entering a physiological state of restoration that is deeper and more profound than at any other time of the year. The cold is the cradle. The warmth is the blanket. Let the heaviness take you. Let the cozy take you. Sink into the mattress. Sink into the warmth. Sink into the science of sleep. We have reached the end of our journey. We have walked through the acoustical silence of the snow-covered forest. We have sat by the first fire of the ancestors. We have wrapped ourselves in the furs of the Vikings and the heavy quilts of the Victorians. We have looked up at the crystal stars and inward at the quiet machinery of our own bodies. Now there is nowhere left to go. The path ends here at the edge of the great, soft, white abyss of sleep. This final chapter is not about history. It is not about science. It is about surrender. There is a force in the universe that is stronger than any human will, stronger than any plan, stronger than any worry. It is the force of the cycle. The earth turns, the seasons change, the night comes, the snow falls. These things happen whether we want them to or not. And there is a profound, devastatingly beautiful freedom in admitting that we cannot control them. Winter is the season of the everlasting drift.
Imagine the snow outside your window again. But this time, do not focus on the individual flakes. Focus on the accumulation. Think of how the snow drifts against the side of the house, against the fence, against the trees. It does not push, it does not shove, it simply leans. It leans with a heavy, persistent weight until it covers everything in a smooth, undulating blanket of white. That is what sleep is doing to you right now. It is drifting against your consciousness. It is piling up, soft and heavy, smoothing over the sharp edges of your thoughts. It is covering the landscape of your mind. You do not need to try to sleep. You only need to let yourself be buried, just for a little while, in this comfortable drift. Think of the trees we saw earlier, the great oaks and the pines. Do they struggle against the winter? Do they stand there anxious, wondering when the spring will come? No, they surrender. They drop their leaves. They pull their energy down into the dark, safe earth. They wait. You are part of this earth. You are not a machine running separate from nature. You are a piece of nature. The same iron that is in the core of the planet is in your blood. The same water that freezes in the pond is in your cells. Therefore, you have permission to do what the earth is doing. You have permission to stop. The earth is tipping away from the sun. That is all winter is, a giant planetary leaning back into the shadows. Imagine the entire continent of North America leaning back in a rocking chair, tilting away from the light, closing its eyes for the long night. You are leaning back with it. Feel the gravity holding you to your bed. This gravity is not just a force, it is an anchor. It is the earth holding on to you, saying, I have you. You can let go. You don't need to hold yourself up. Let your muscles listen to that voice. Let your jaw unhinge slightly. Let your shoulders drop away from your ears. Let your hands uncurl. There is a concept called the Great Let Go. It is the realization that the world will continue to spin without your help for the next 8 hours. The stars will rotate around the North Star. The tides will go out and come back in. The sun will eventually rise. None of this requires your supervision. You are off duty. The watch is over. Visualize a river in winter. The water is moving, but it is moving slowly. It is thick, cold, and dark. On the surface, ice is forming, sheets of white spreading out from the banks, meeting in the middle, sealing the river shut. Your thoughts are like that river. They are slowing down. They are becoming slushy and slow. The ice is forming over the surface of your mind. It is a protective layer. The noise of the world is trapped beneath the ice, muffled and distant. You are floating on top, in the silence. The drift is taking you now. It is a drift into timelessness. In deep winter, time seems to lose its meaning. Days blend into nights. Centuries blend into one another. As we drift toward sleep, we lose our grip on linear time. We float in the eternal now. Think of the frontier cabin again. The fire there has burned down to embers. The room is dark. Think of the Victorian house. The candles are snuffed out. The house is silent. Think of the bear in the den. His breathing is so slow it is almost imperceptible. They are all asleep. The history of the world is a history of people sleeping through the winter. You are joining a procession of billions of souls who have found comfort in the dark.
The silence is absolute now. The snow has covered the tracks you made to get here. There is no way back to the day. There is only the way forward into the night. Feel the physiology of cozy taking its final effect. The warmth of your bed is indistinguishable from the warmth of your body. The boundary has dissolved. You are just a glowing ember in a dark room. Allow your mind to become white. Not a bright, blinding white, but a soft, creamy winter white. The color of heavy clouds, the color of a fresh page. There are no words on this page. There are no lists. There are no images. Just peace. If a thought comes to you, imagine it is a single snowflake landing on your warm hand. Watch it melt. It dissolves into water and vanishes. It cannot stick. The heat of your relaxation melts it instantly. You are surrendering to the cycle. The cycle of the day is done. The cycle of the year is in its resting phase. The cycle of your breath is slow and deep. Inhale, the peace of the winter. Exhale, the dust of the day. You are drifting deeper now, deeper than the roots of the trees, deeper than the bottom of the frozen lake. You are going to the place where restoration happens. This surrender is not a defeat. It is a victory. It is the victory of peace over chaos. It is the victory of silence over noise. By sleeping, you are claiming your right to exist simply as a being, not as a doing. The everlasting drift is gentle. It carries you like a leaf on that slow-moving river. You don't have to swim. You don't have to steer. The current of sleep knows exactly where to take you. It takes you to the land of dreams. And what will you dream of? Perhaps you will dream of the spring that is waiting, far off in the distance. But not yet. The winter is long, and the winter is kind. Let the darkness wrap you up. It is a velvet darkness. It is soft to the touch. The stars are still there, watching, but you don't need to see them anymore. The fire is still warm, but you don't need to tend it. Everything is done. Everything is quiet. Everything is white. You are safe in the arms of the winter. You are one with the sleeping earth. You are drifting, drifting, drifting. Let go and sleep.